He's always been athletic, but now Brian plays basketball with his sister's kidney at the Transplant Games of America.
The Transplant Games of America are designed to promote organ transplantation. We want to show the world that we can participate in these sports and that we can have a normal life.
That's kidney transplant recipient and team manager for Transplant Life Illinois, Brian Stiner. I'm Monica Fox, kidney transplant recipient and Director of Outreach and Government Relations for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, and your host. On this episode of The Journey Continues, Brian shares how he maintains a healthy, active lifestyle as a transplant recipient. Hey, Brian, let's just get right into it. How'd your kidney journey start?
Well, my journey started with pilot lessons. I've always wanted to learn how to fly, so I started taking lessons. And when I had to solo, I had to take a pretty extensive physical, and that's when they found blood or protein in my urine. And so we went and did further testing. I was referred to a nephrologist, had a biopsy, and turned out that I had IgAN, which is immunoglobulin A neuropathy.
And
Um,
how'd you feel when you got that diagnosis?
well, not bad at all. The doctor said that it was like a one there was like a 1% chance that you would need a transplant. So to me that just that didn't mean much. I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to move on with my life. And my mom and my sister were both there at that biopsy, and they pretty much were the same way. And so we didn't really think much of it. That changed 5 years later when I discovered blood in my urine. I went back to the nephrologist, and he said, "Yeah, it looks like you're going to need a transplant." And that's when it became a lot more emotional, and it hit me a lot harder. I recall when I got that information, and I was driving back home, like I actually was, I cried, and I thought, my life was over. I thought, I was actually going to die possibly. Then that was pretty short lived, because then I started researching and started understanding it better, getting a little more comfortable with the idea, and went from there.
So, obviously, you had some fears and expectations when you heard that you needed a transplant, your kidneys were failing. What proved to be different than those fears and expectations that you had initially as you went along?
After doing this research, I learned how it was a lot more common than I thought with kidney transplants, and how successful they were. And I just, I always try to look on the bright side of everything and put a positive spin. So I just thought, okay, well, I need a transplant. I see that lots of people are having transplants and they're living normal lives. And I thought if I was going to get some kind of disease, that this was better than a lot of other diseases out there. And so that was my way of trying to put a positive spin on my situation.
Yes, that makes sense. And so at that time, did you have a donor that you knew of or
Not right at that moment. First, I contacted my parents and told them what was going on. It wasn't that long afterwards where I knew that my brother and sister both had volunteered to get tested. My parents even, volunteered to get tested initially, but we knew that siblings had a better chance of matching up. And so both my brother and sister did the antigen test, and my sister was the better match. And so she was the one that was volunteering to give me a kidney.
are your siblings older or younger than you or both?
They're younger. My brother's a year younger, and my sister's 2 years younger.
So you must be a nice big brother, huh? That they both step forward to be willing to save your life.
I guess so.
Sounds like it. So you went through the transplant process. Was there any talk of dialysis? Did you have to spend any time on dialysis during your journey?
Since I knew that I had a donor, I didn't at that time realize that I was going to need dialysis. But as it turned out, when it got closer to my transplant, we had it scheduled. My sister was out of the country, and the doctors were getting worried that my levels were going to drop to the point where I would be in danger. It was becoming a slippery slope. So the doctors decided to put a catheter in me and start dialysis. So I did go through dialysis for about a month, 10 sessions before my sister was back in the country and we were able to, perform the transplant.
During those 10 sessions, did you have any issues on dialysis?
I would say the first 2 or 3 dialysis sessions, I became very nauseated afterwards, and to the point where I threw up a couple times. It wasn't fun, and it's not fun sitting in that chair for 3 or 4 hours 3 times a week. But after a while, I think my body kind of got used to it a little bit. I still would feel kind of icky at times, but yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride going in and then letting your body adjust.
Yes, dialysis is a life saving process, but not an easy one to live through and experience.
Yeah, it's rough because your kidneys are constantly removing toxins from your blood in real time. And what dialysis is it's doing the same thing, but like for example, every 3 days. And so it's like your body is your blood is getting dirty, and then once you go to the dialysis machine, it cleans it like really quick. And it's incredible how cleaning your blood would get you sick, but it's really rough on the body.
Yeah, it's a real shock to your system.
It sure is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you did not have to experience that for long. So, your sister, she's a hero. She saved your life and all. Does she wear a cape these days?
She does not wear a cape. She does not consider herself a hero. She's a nurse and she's been in the medical field all her life. She just knew it was the right thing to do. I'm her brother and she understood the risks and she understood what I was going through, and she volunteered, and that's it. But she doesn't consider herself a hero at all. But
Well,
she is.
she
She is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And so she is like so many other living donors who give such a life saving gift and do not consider themselves heroes. But it's really a beautiful thing that she did for you. And I'm so happy that she did.
Hmm.
How'd your health impact your family? I mean, how old were you when all this happened? And did this have an overall impact besides your siblings just stepping up and saying, okay, I'll give you one of mine?
When I first learned that there was a 1% chance that I would need a transplant, that was in 1993. I was 29 years old. That didn't really impact my life at all. I was, extremely involved in sports, especially basketball and volleyball. I was always out doing something, and very driven when it came to sports, very competitive. And then when we found out that I was going to need a transplant, I know it seems so seamless to me, where my sister and brother, volunteered, they got tested, my sister was a match. It just seemed to, all come together. It doesn't feel like there was a huge impact at all from my perspective.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And how's being a transplant recipient changed your outlook on life?
Definitely, a greater appreciation for life, for sure. I know that's a cliche, but it's definitely true. I think I have a greater empathy for those, not just, that are going through transplantation, but other diseases as well. Now that I'm, in this situation of being a transplant and going through the routine of medication and the ups and the downs, more aware of other people's misfortunes.
I can relate to all of that for sure,
Yeah.
firsthand. And what was your post transplant recovery like?
Leading up to my transplant, and like I said, I was heavily involved in sports. My energy level apparently was going down, but I didn't realize it because I was so involved in sports and so driven. But when I had my transplant and I was up and was able to like stand up and walk the hallways, it was amazing how much energy I had that I didn't realize I had lost. And so I felt great. I was walking down the hall and doing a spin dance move, walking down to my sister's room to go check on her and stuff, and it was great for me. My sister, on the other hand, she had, a harder time. She was one kidney short, and so her body was getting used to that. Her body was all puffed up from the transplant, and so she was still recovering. So she had a little bit harder recovery initially. before we got out of the hospital. So,
Wow, I just got a visual in my head of you, spinning around the hospital hallways and doing the moonwalk and all that
oh
with
yeah,
your newfound post-transplant energy.
well, I had that IV stand with the IV bag attached to me, so I was rolling that down the hallway with me, and so yeah, it is quite an image.
I can see it, and they give you a little bit of prednisone then too. That helps with the energy level.
Oh yeah, not a little, a lot. Yeah, I remember the puffy face, and I remember the prednisone. I remember what that did to me. I had the puffy face, and it makes you hungry.
Yeah.
I was when I finally went back to work, and I was still on high doses of prednisone at the beginning. I would go to work with my lunch, and I would eat it by 10 o'clock, and by 12:30, I was down in the cafeteria getting another lunch. Seriously, it's crazy what it does to your appetite.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The fun stories us post-transplant recipients can share. So when were you able to return to work and normal activities and
Returning to work, I was scheduled to be out for, I want to say 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. I was supposed to be out, but I do recall that I came back to work like a couple weeks early because I was feeling pretty good. And being in the telecom industry and just sitting at a computer all day, it was easy for me to just sit at work and be there as easy as being at home.
so you were very active athletically. When were you able to get back to, playing basketball and doing the athletic things that you loved?
Yeah, I stayed away from sports for a little while, but my surgery was in June, and I don't think I started playing basketball until like October or November. I actually ran the basketball leagues for AT&T, so I obviously wanted to get involved in playing again, and so by that time I was ready to play. I took it easy at first, but then I was 100% after a while.
That's great. And so now you're the manager of Team Illinois with Transplant Life Illinois.
Uh-huh.
When did you get involved with them?
I got involved with the team manager position this last set of games, but before that, I was the vice president of Transplant Life Illinois. I've been playing since 2004. Those were my first games. I did help out here and there before I had an official position, like helping out with hotels and things like that.
So the Transplant Games of America, when and where do they take place?
Well, they take place every 2 years and they actually move around the country. They were supposed to be in New Jersey this year, but because of the pandemic, it's going to be a virtual event. But when I first started in 2004, they were in Minneapolis. And from there, it's been Louisville, Pittsburgh. Then we went up to Madison, Grand Rapids, Houston, Cleveland, Salt Lake City, and then the games for this year. And then next year they're going to go to San Diego, which I'm very excited about because I love San Diego and can't wait to visit again.
I love San Diego too, so I'm looking forward to that as well. That'll be fun. And so, why was getting involved with Team Illinois important to your post transplant life?
I'm a an organizer. I love to be involved. I love to organize things, and I wanted to also help advocate for transplantation and show the world that we can do normal things after a transplant. Whether you're a recipient or a donor, we can go out there and play basketball just as hard as anybody. You can compete in any sport, any given thing that's part of the transplant games just as easily as anybody. And we wanted to show the world that we could do that.
And so, what events do you participate in?
Well, I play on the basketball team and the volleyball team. Those are the two main sports that I would play at the transplant games. I'm a basketball junkie. I mean, I've played basketball since I was in elementary school. I was on the basketball team as a manager in high school, and in college I played almost every night. And so I was definitely playing a lot of basketball. The reason I play just basketball and volleyball was because I would always bring my family to the transplant games. And so during the day, we would use that time to do a little sightseeing and it'd be kind of family time. But there were a few times when the family didn't come and I would get involved in like ping pong and badminton. And because, I love every sport.
Well, I think it's great that you have found a way post transplant to use your athletic energy and prowess to stay busy, stay involved and active. Tell me more about the Transplant Games of America and the other events. You mentioned ping pong and some others.
Well, the Transplant Games of America are designed to promote organ transplantation. That's the main reason we're there. We want to show the world that we can participate in these sports and that we can have a normal life. The Transplant Games are just like a regular Olympics. We have a opening ceremony with a torch, and we have a closing ceremony, and we have all these events in between, from basketball, volleyball, tennis. We have swimming events, track and field events, golf, badminton, bowling, ping pong, darts, bags. They even added pickleball for the last couple of games. I mean, you name it, they try to add it to the list. And if you're not the athletic type, it doesn't matter. You can play in these sports. Just, we do it for promoting organ transplantation and for the camaraderie and so it doesn't matter. And if you want, you can also play poker or trivia, which are non-athletic events. So there's something for everybody, and there's even things for donor families. Well, they've got a quilt ceremony and other things that are geared for anybody, supporters that show up to the games.
Yes, it is a wonderful time and a time to meet people from all over the country, living donors, donor families, recipients, transplant recipients of all organs and tissues.
Yes.
So it is it's wonderful. And let's not forget ballroom dancing is another one of the events for
Oh
those
yeah.
dancers who might be listening.
Yeah, I remember you out there on the floor. So yeah, yeah.
So and it's important to say that you don't have to be an established athlete to participate.
You do
You
not.
know, I
No.
had never danced before and I took some dance lessons and the weeks leading up to it, and that added a level of activity to my life. So people who aren't athletic should be encouraged as well to participate and be a part of the games, and it definitely enhances your life on many different levels, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not about winning. It's about going out there and just having fun and showing the world what organ transplantation can do for you.
So, what would you say to encourage other transplant recipients to get involved with Transplant Life Illinois and the Games?
I would say do it. You might regret not doing it down the road. I've built up so many friendships over the years, the camaraderie. That's the reason I go, not just to compete. For me, it's the social aspect of it. It's a good time.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you spending this time with me, sharing your kidney journey, helping us to learn more about Transplant Life Illinois and the Transplant Games of America.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
Staying active and healthy is so important for recipients and their living donors after a transplant. And competing in the Transplant Games is a great way to keep your body moving with a supportive team cheering you on. For more information about joining or supporting Transplant Life Illinois, visit goteamillinois.org. At NKFI, prevention is a major part of our mission. That's why at the end of each episode, you will hear a nutrition tip. Here's Dr. Melissa Prest.
Here's today's nutrition tip about calcium. Calcium is a mineral that is essential to bones and teeth, with 99% of the calcium in our body stored in them. Our bones are constantly being broken down and rebuilt, and we use the stored calcium in our body to do this process. Our nerves, heart, and the ability to clot blood all use calcium to do their work as well. As we age, we start to lose the amount of calcium stored in our body. In women, as estrogen levels decline with age, calcium absorption can also decline. Calcium is rich in yogurt, milk, fortified dairy alternatives like soy milk and almond milk, sardines and salmon with bones, cheese, tofu, green leafy vegetables like broccoli, turnip leaves, and kale, fortified breakfast cereals, fortified juices, nuts and seeds, legumes and grains, cornmeal, and corn tortillas. Calcium is better absorbed by your body if you eat a food with vitamin D in it as well. So milk fortified with vitamin D allows you to better absorb the calcium in milk. Adults aged 19 years or older need 1,000 milligrams a day of calcium, and women over the age of 51 need 1,200 milligrams per day. Eating 3 servings of dairy foods a day can help you meet that goal. If you have chronic kidney disease, you may have to limit the amount of dairy-rich foods per day. Talk with your kidney doctor to know how much calcium a day is right for you. With today's nutrition tip, I'm Melissa Press, a registered dietitian nutritionist and the foundation dietitian for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois.
The Journey Continues is brought to you by the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois and sponsored by Donate Life Illinois. To learn more about kidney disease and living donation, visit www.nkfi.org. To register to become an eye, tissue, and organ donor, visit lifegoeson.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe to and leave a review for The Journey Continues in Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen. This podcast is produced by Rivet. To hear more great podcasts, visit rivet360.com.